Mike Tyson back on the stand again, facing tough questions from the prosecution.
This is NBC Nightly News, reported by Garrick, Utley.
Good evening. This was the day the prosecution went to work on Mike Tyson. He was on the stand defending himself against the charge of rape, answering pointed questions about inconsistencies in his testimony. Correspondent Gary Matsumoto is covering the trial in Indianapolis. Gary?
Mike Tyson spent less than an hour and a half on the witness stand today. Attorneys watching the trial say it was long enough to damage his credibility, that Tyson's testimony was filled with discrepancies. The trial here in Indianapolis has been a tale of two Tysons. Tyson, the people's champion, affectionate with his fans, is accused of being a sexual predator who asked out one of those fans last July and allegedly raped her. In cross-examination today, the prosecution tried to point out inconsistencies. Tyson said his accuser, Desiree Washington, wore tight pink hot pants the night of the alleged rape, her thighs exposed. In fact, she wore long, baggy shorts that are now entered as state's evidence. In his grand jury testimony last September, Tyson said his bodyguard was in the living room of his suite the entire time Tyson was having allegedly consensual sex with his accuser. Hotel records show the bodyguard was making phone calls from another hotel room. But many courtroom observers say the case will hinge on whether or not the jury believes Tyson's version of one conversation.
The case is going to turn on one issue, whether in the initial encounter between Tyson and the accuser, Tyson said, "I want to have intercourse with you," using a crude term, and she replied in a chirpy way, "Sure, give me a call."
A conversation that would suggest consent. And Kaplis believes the defense has made the jury skeptical of Tyson's testimony.
So they are now filtering their perceptions of Tyson's testimony through this negative image that the defense has force-fed them.
The defense is expected to rest its case tomorrow. Final arguments could come as early as Monday. The prosecution has already announced that it plans to retry Tyson if the jury is hung. Garrick?
Thank you, Gary. We go overseas now. The 16th Winter Olympics got underway in the French Alps today, the first without the old bitter political rivalry between East and West. And while Olympic fans gathered to watch the games, a non-Olympian was also in the spotlight for a bit. Here's Dennis Murphy.
Vice President Dan Quayle greeted the American team today. Quayle got a jump on the Olympians with an early start to the downhill. His four-wheel drive car lost its brakes on a steep mountain road this afternoon. The Secret Service driver managed to stop it without injuries. Members of the Russian team watched Quayle's arrival from their hotel balcony. In a village of bright plumage, the Russians stand out here in their overcoats and fedoras. Their warm-up jackets bear the letters CCCP, Cyrillic for USSR, a country that no longer exists. The female speed skaters might not be here at all without a gift from Adidas, the sporting goods manufacturers. Speed skater Konstantin Kalistratov is broke.
Do you have money to walk around here for the shops?
Oh, no.
The Cold War Olympics were showcases for the Soviet bloc states. Government-trained and funded athletes raked in the medals. Now brilliant Russian skaters like Dmitriev and Mishkut Yanik must pay for their own training. The members of the U.S. speed ski team are at Winter Games for the first time.
The competition will be all positive. It's not, let's have our country beat your country because we don't believe politically in what you believe.
The end of the Cold War doesn't mean the end of Russian dominance in the Winter Games. They won 29 medals last time out, and no matter what uniform they're wearing or how much change they have in their pockets, they're still formidable competitors. Dennis Murphy, NBC News in the Olympic Village, Ried-Liban, France.
And as we cover our world this day, we'll see how some people who have lost their jobs in this country are trying to go into business for themselves. As some Japanese leaders ask questions about American workers, our ability and energy, we'll hear what Germany's chancellor thinks of us. And this evening on Focus, emergency medical care for children. Is it available when they need it? Not often enough.
If this were a perfect world, we'd all be driving expensive cars and living on beachfront property. But in the real world, you have to eat. Well, you can eat tuna once in a while. And you have to buy stuff like socks and shoes and CDs. Well, maybe not so many CDs. Fortunately, the people at Isuzu have to buy stuff too. That's why they created the Rodeo, a four-wheel drive vehicle you can afford, and why they'll give you a great deal on a sound system and air conditioning. So now, you can buy more stuff. Oh, we forgot to mention taxes.
Hey, there's
there's a really big dollar day sale going on right now at Ace. Yep, $1 buys any one of these Ace Best Buys. Over 2 dozen for just $1 a piece. Look for Ace really big dollar day circulars and come in today. Hey, Ace is the place.
There's constipation and there's constipation.
Oh, yeah.
When it's this bad, take it to the max. New maximum relief formula Ex-Lax pills with 50% more Ex-Lax medicine for maximum relief.
Oh, yeah.
Take it to the max.
Now let's look at some domestic concerns. First, crime, at the top of the list of concerns in many cities. As crime increases, so does the debate over crime control, especially gun control. Does it work? Keith Morrison looks for answers in California.
The aftermath of yet another murder in the city. All the more shocking, perhaps, because it is so commonplace, we hardly notice anymore. In Los Angeles County alone, there are now, on average, 7 murders a day. 7. And more than 3/4 of those are death by gun. Accidents are up, domestic killings are up, and the police are often outgunned by gangs on the streets. And in the face of all that, this man is claiming a victory?
The people are living today that otherwise would not be alive.
He is Lloyd Connolly, a state assemblyman who authored the toughest gun control law in the nation. It's a waiting period, 15 days, for people who want to buy handguns, rifles, shotguns, anything that shoots lethal bullets. And in its first year, the forms, the background checks have weeded out people the government views as ticking time bombs. Thousands of would-be purchasers who were told you can't get one in this state. Who was denied a gun? Who could have bought one in other states? 609 would-be buyers convicted on drug and narcotic charges. 101 convicted on sex crimes. 34 on homicide. Burglary, 338. And assault, felony, or misdemeanor, almost 3,000.
Roughly 6,000 criminal record, serious violent crime folks or serious mental health folks that didn't buy weapons that otherwise would have last year in California. So we think that's a success.
A success? Hasn't slowed the crime rate yet. And in gun stores around the state are merchants who say good people are being turned away by a government bent on interfering with fundamental rights.
You don't have a hardcore criminal here. You know, you've got a guy that through a variety of circumstances, maybe at one point he drank too much. Maybe he had a felony drunk driving charge on him. You know, something happened there.
The vast number of criminals who are trying to obtain firearms for illegitimate purposes go to the black market or they steal them. They don't go through gun shops where the 15-day waiting period is implemented.
No, and they hardly need the black market when they can go to a state next door, to Nevada or Arizona, and buy a rifle or shotgun without a waiting period, without a background check. That is why, on the streets, police chiefs say the California law will make a bigger difference if other states get on board. And the Assemblyman has a new campaign.
We're hopeful that the California experience will motivate the federal government to move.
Gun advocates ask, if there were 6,000 ticking time bombs in California, how many in the nation? Keith Morrison, NBC News, Los Angeles.
And another concern, the economy. Another 91,000 jobs were lost last month. How do people react to the shock of being out of a job? Well, those with some money or severance pay can try to go into business for themselves, a chance for independence. Appealing, but risky. Here's our chief economics correspondent, Irving R. Levine.
When Mark Ennis lost his job as a bartender, he went for broke, taking the risk of going into business for himself. That was last year, and despite the recession, it was good timing.
In the recession, a lot of people stopped going to full-service restaurants. They stopped taking the family out to sit down eating, and they tend to come to a faster type establishment.
Surprising in a recession, but a growing number of laid-off Americans who can raise the money are investing in their own businesses. And at shows like this, franchisers and other businesses seek investors. Investors attracted by stories of success, but there's no guarantee you won't lose your money. A popcorn stand, the kind seen in movie theaters. Even in hard times, there are takers.
The recession's made it easier. We've had people that come from big companies, big stockbroker companies, major manufacturers come here and buy this because they've been handed the pink slip, you know.
Franchisers estimate that new franchises added more than 100,000 new jobs to the U.S. economy last year. Small businesses at home set up on the investment of a few $1,000s for engraving tools. A Mako car painting franchise, a major investment that paid off for Cole Murtaugh.
I borrowed some money from some family members. I had some savings.
It's not for everyone investing in a business. 1 out of 3 small businesses fail after a year or so, and the risks are particularly great during a recession. Irving R. Levine, NBC News, Washington.
And speaking of risks, a congressional subcommittee held hearing